the skill of learning how to tint could take you anywhere around the globe and probably make a really good chunk of change comparable to what's available where you're at right now.
Absolutely. Now we're at a point where like the decisions we make have an impact across multiple families. If we make a mistake, we could take a dive in the company. And
skilled labor jobs are at an all-time demand, and you can make good money without taking up a bunch of debt, going to college, and maybe get indoctrinated with some craziness of whatever is going on campuses right now. And those jobs are available everywhere.
I think we have found the niche of where you fit best within the company.
Yeah, I enjoy sales for sure. But selling directly to the end consumer, the product that I know and understand and can solve some problems for, is I feel like a totally different thing than going trying to sell a new brand of film to a shop. I knew it would be difficult going into it, just because I know how long we've used SolarGuard, and I know how many shops are like branded with what they've been using, and they've made relationships with those people. It was a totally different thing. It really opened my eyes up to the spectrum of the industry, though, because Dallas market's huge. I think I went to 200 plus shops in the span of like 3 months, some of them several times. I did get some accounts and kind of grew that brand in Dallas. It wasn't for me, especially at the time, right coming out of the Army, having just come back from my deployment. All that driving was stressing me out. I really didn't like it. And the traffic in Dallas, I was actually going through like crazy anxiety spells and stuff at that time. It was probably not entirely that. I think it was also my marital issues and, readjusting to civilian life. But definitely it made me realize I didn't want to work for a corporation. And it was like, okay, I know how to tint. I actually just got to canvas the Dallas market for like 3 or 4 months. Actually, it was probably about 5 months. So I got to see where all the shops were, who was doing what. I had made some relationships with some shops in the area I was living in, so I was already spending like a couple accounts that I landed because I knew how to tint, and they would like lose a tinter, and the guy would call me and be like, hey, I've got a car in here, and the owner of that shop didn't know how to tint at the time. He opened up a tint and stereo shop because he knew the stereo side of things. Sam, great dude. I actually, whenever I go back out there, I go by and visit him still to this day. I think he's still there. It's funny because he's like right around the corner from another tint shop that I met while being a sales rep that I talk to all the time also, who just actually contacted me recently about a residential project he was on. It was a bunch of wood frames, and he kind of had some questions on it. I made a lot of really good relationships in the Dallas area at that time, but so I would go to his shop and help him like finish a car that he couldn't tint because he just lost his tinter. And so then when I stopped being a rep, I kind of went and I would work on the weekends for him for a little bit, right until we made the transition of me. I came out here for a month or two while stuff was going on with my divorce. We did the Rebel gas station job, and that was kind of when I had like a nice little 2-month time frame being out here working that job. Didn't have to go back for court or anything, and I had the girls here with me. But it was clear that I couldn't come back then because I had a divorce I was going through, and so we opened the shop out there. That went well. Ran that for like a year and a half. Think did close to $200,000 in my first year with a part-time installer that helped me, Kenny, who worked for the shop in the past. And Molly, my then sister-in-law, helping run the front of the shop. So got up to like 3 people, and it went well. I learned a couple really good lessons on paying attention to your marketing streams. We made like an adjustment to the website because I was just like an extra page or couple extra pages on the website for this location at the time. We just had one main website, but it had like a Texas location, Henderson location.
That's why we got so many phone calls from Texas.
Yeah. And we made changes to the website, and I didn't realize that was going to shut down my Google AdWords, which I was running myself at the time. So I went from being crazy busy in like August, September to October, just like going to a screeching halt. And naively, I thought it was just like, oh, it's going into winter, fall time, the Texas Fair. Everybody says that kills local business, and that's happening right now. And it wasn't until like the end of November that I was standing around like just staring at the wall, like waiting for the phone to ring, that I like opened up Google AdWords and realized, oh, my AdWords have been down for 2 months. Turned it back on. At that point, I was so slow. I was kind of just back down to myself because I didn't have the ability to really pay anybody else. Luckily, it was kind of part-time for them, and it worked out. And then by the time it did start getting busy again, my divorce was finalized. Without getting too much into the details of that, situation kind of unfolded where I could come back out here, and I didn't have to worry about custody for a while. And once that offer was kind of made, that I was starting to get busy again, but then I had a customer that I had done work for that needed a spot to open his business, who was looking for a unit in the center that I was in, right there off of 380, and there was nothing available. And I was like, actually, I just had something open up where I might be able to go back and work at the family business in Henderson, and struck a deal with him to sublease out the unit for the rest of the lease. Sold the phone numbers to Sam, that tint shop in McKinney that I had worked for a little bit. I actually did a little bit of side work for Frisco Tint too. Also, I can't remember his name. He was a really cool dude. He was a Lumar dealer. So that was the other fun thing while I was there. I got to play around installing a couple different films. Really saw the power of the internet marketing and the ability to get flat glass work going. My one big regret on that location was having a shop and dealing with cars at all. It's definitely a big lesson. I went back and looked at the numbers. If we didn't have the overhead of the shop, the time I spent in there dealing with cars, dealing with paint protection, and I just had a website turned on and just had AdWords going at the time, probably could have done a better job with Facebook too. I'm sure that was an opportunity that was lost.
There's always room for improvement across the board. Yeah. It seems like the same thing it always repeats itself. We even had to run into the same thing, last year and the year before, where we thought our internet marketing was going a certain way. We got complacent. And then by the time we looked into it, realizing like, wow, we are dumping a lot of money into this right now, and we're not seeing the return that we should be close to at least.
Yeah.
And then actually diving into it and realizing like, oh, well, money's being spent here and there, and these words are being like, well, this doesn't make sense at all. And then making that change. Yeah. And then you learn.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's weird going to tinter battles and WFCT and all of that, meeting people in the industry that are like following along on Instagram, following the podcast, of like what we look like where we're at right now, which we have grown into a bigger business and things are going in a good direction. But there are those years of struggle and lessons learned that have gotten us here. And yeah, we continue to learn.
Well, that's kind of the main reason why I wanted to kind of do this. Like it'd be like a, I guess, 2-part series of like, we want to do the Q&A, but like more likely dive in deep of like where we were in our careers from the begin with to where we're kind of at now. And I mean, looking back, I know that you've made this comment before in the past saying that you stepped away and joined the military because you and Dad just like water and oil.
Yeah, kind of.
You need, well, from your perspective, like I said, I've heard you mention this. Like you need to go do some growing up, which I've had to do the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think that was my intent at the time. I look back on it now, and I can say that like a little older and wiser, I think that was what was needed. It wasn't entirely that. It was also, being, I don't know, I remember there not being the internet. I remember VHS. Like I'm like that weird age group that's like kind of seen everything change the way it has. I was a sophomore when 9/11 happened. I almost joined the military right out of high school because I got caught up on that. And, there wasn't a car driving down the road at that point in time that didn't have a flag on it. Our grandfather was a sergeant major in the Army. That always intrigued me. I was always intrigued by the military and service and being patriotic. You know, I don't know how many times I've seen Saving Private Ryan or Black Hawk Down or any of those movies.
Yeah, watch that movie and go, you know, I'm gonna join.
Yeah. So it always seemed exciting and like something to go out and challenge myself with and do something of my own. So yeah, and part of really encouraging me to make that step was the fact that I didn't want to not get along with Dad. Like, I love Dad and he's been amazing to us, and you know, I can't even imagine how hard it was running the shop early days and keeping us involved in sports the way we were and somehow wrangling all that, especially without all the extra comfort features of technology we have now to like organize our schedules and all of that. But there was something about working for him that at the time I couldn't. We definitely, we were oil and water in a lot of cases. And I didn't want to have that bad relationship. So it's like, okay, I got to go do my own thing. And I definitely didn't plan on making the military career. I thought it was just going to be like a 3-year adventure and then see where I go from there. And then while I was in, I actually enjoyed it a lot, re-enlisted. I was very close to re-enlisting again to take those orders to go to Fort Leonard Wood, because I came down on orders. And anybody doesn't know, if you only have so much time left in the military and you come down on orders for a new duty assignment, you get the choice to re-enlist to fulfill that obligation. So you need to have at least so much time left on your contract in order to go to the next duty station, because they're not going to not going to pay to move you from one place to another for then you to get out 3 months later. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, shocking the government actually would think that way.
No, it's that part, so I was retention NCO the last 2 years I was in. So I did all the re-enlistments for everybody in my unit for a good solid 2 years. So learning how that worked was really beneficial, because when I came down on those orders, you have the option to sign what's called a deck statement and decline the orders. And then because of stop loss during the Iraq War, if you did that, you couldn't get out. Like, you couldn't sign a deck statement and get away from orders, because there was no way to distinguish from orders going to another duty station or orders to being deployed. Yeah. And if you had 10 days left in the Army and your unit came down on orders to deploy in 9 days, that's hypothetical. It wouldn't happen that quickly. But let's say you have 9 months left and your unit comes down on orders to go in 8 months. You're not getting out in 9 months when stop loss was in place. It was, you're gonna get extended, you're gonna deploy. They paid people that did that extra money at a certain point. They kind of called stop loss pay. And then when you get back, you can get out. That ended like the January of the year that I got orders to go to Fort Leonard Wood. And I knew that, being a retention NCO, that now I could sign a deck statement and just get out early. And I heard that job opportunity was there. I went interviewed for it on a weekend, got the offer as long as I could make it there by June 1st or something like that. And I basically did all the paperwork and brought it through to my company and got myself out in like less than a month to go take that job. And at first I was met with a lot of resistance. Like, you can't do that. You can't sign a deck statement. It's not. I was like, actually, no, I had to like pull up the regs and kind of show my company commander that, no, this is allowed. And he's like, well, I can't approve it. So I had to go like above him.
That pissed me
but
off.
I went way up I was trying to get out anyway, so it didn't really matter. I already knew my career was over, and I knew that I was right. So I went to like the command sergeant major of Corps for like all of Fort Hood. I called that office and got a hold of them and told them what was going on. And like within 2 days, the ball was rolling for me to get out. It was kind of crazy. So I probably pissed a couple people off, but the regs are the regs. And like, they had just recently changed and nobody had done that in, 10 years, because stop loss had been in effect for a while. So I got out pretty quick, but I took that job. Started the shop in Texas. Things went well. I learned a lot. I got to go on a lot of sales calls for flat glass there, so definitely got a lot more comfortable doing that there. Came back out here in 2014, and it's been 10 years now. It's crazy. Oh. And it's from that time on, I've like, dang, I could write a book just on those last 10 years. The growth I've had since then has been insane.
Well, let's hop back before that, though. So just a quick hit of the beginning of your career. You started tending 10,
Oh yeah, we did skip that.
11, 12 years old.
I mean, younger than that, honestly.
Yeah,
I
but
remember.
I gauge it though on
Like,
when did you actually do a job where it wasn't like, hey, can my son do this window for free for you?
Well, in the shop for cars, I was definitely tinting quarter windows before I was 10. Yeah, I was in there all the time. And I remember, like I said, I remember being in the California shop. So I had to be younger than 7 or 8,
Yeah,
being able to like cut my name out in tint on the peel board with an OFA and be like, oh, look at this. So I was definitely allowed to play with the OFA a lot younger than I've allowed any of my kids to play with it. So that's kind of feel like I've kind of failed them a little bit on that aspect. But I think we always had it in our mind that like we always heard mom saying, "Wait, you guys got to go to school. Don't be a window tinter." You know, like
constantly.
There was this mindset of like it's a bad thing, which is I think been throughout our culture, and it's why there's such a shortage in skilled labor jobs right now. Kind of part of why we're doing this is like skilled labor jobs are at an all-time demand, and you can make good money without taking up a bunch of debt, going to college, and maybe get indoctrinated with some craziness of whatever is going on campuses right now. And those jobs are available everywhere. Like if you're hardworking and you know that that it's going to take a while to learn something, and you're willing to put in that time, and you're patient, and you realize, I mean, Tinter Battle's kind of changed my mindset on this a little bit. You don't even have to be a young person. You could be someone in your 30s, 40s, 50s that just wants to change. And it's something that in a handful of years you can pick up the skill and be making good money doing. And if you're entrepreneur minded, you can definitely create a good business around this. If you already have the entrepreneurial skills and the business skills, learning the tinting skills and you know how to hire people, you're already ahead of most of the pack of people who just got into tinting and are trying to learn the business along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I feel like that's been our biggest growth in the last 10 years, but more so maybe like the last 4 years.
I would even go further. I'd go lower than that. I'd say the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how you can realize for certain things, like for running or for the skill of tinting or jiu-jitsu or whatever, that of course this is going to take a long time and you have to practice and work at it. And sometimes I think people underestimate the value in doing that same thing in your business skills. There's a lot of ego involved, and the way we're doing it is working, so that's what we should be doing, rather than actively looking to see how are other people doing it differently. What could I be doing to improve every little aspect of your business, and being patient about it. That's where I think having you guys has been a huge benefit for me, because I'm definitely, it's got to happen now. Like we got to just make a decision. But sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you got to go through certain steps in the right order. You can't just, I don't know, if you bake a cake and you do it in the wrong order, it's probably not going to turn out right.
Correct.
So,
and I'm saying it's in the wrong order too. It's just in doing the wrong portions and not actually knowing the exact way to get it done first before just like, I just want to get this.
Well, and expecting like, okay, so here's 2 scenarios. You're going to bake a cake and you don't look up any instructions, any ingredients needed. You're just going to go in the pantry and go, oh, I think I need this. I think I need this. And like, how likely is that going to work out well the first time?
No.
And
even if you knew what the ingredients were, how well is it going to work out?
Yeah.
You have no idea the time of duration of everything that needs
compared
to get done.
to taking the time to maybe watching 4, 5, 6, 7 different YouTube videos on whatever style cake it is you're trying to make, look up, and spend some time researching it, learning it. Even then, you're probably not going to pull it off perfectly the first time. But as you get more reps in and trying to do it, you're going to get better and better at it and figure out how to do it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So whether it's tinting, running, jiu-jitsu, business, like you're going to have to make some mistakes. It's kind of cliche. You see it in like inspirational YouTube videos all the time. Like you're going to fail over and over and over again. But are you going to be resilient enough to keep going? And are you going to make the corrections that need to be made based off of what just happened? Like Alex Hormozy's statement on test and iterate. Like, is it a reversible decision or a non-reversible decision? And how reversible is it? Like, if you're going to change something in your business, is it something that can be changed back quickly if you see it's not working? Or is it something that you're going to stick yourself in a position where it's hard to change? And running stuff through that filter, I think, has helped us make decisions a little bit faster when we realize, like, okay, well, let's just try it.
Yep.
And it is something we can change immediately if we have to. Or, this isn't as quick of a change, and if we go this direction, it might put us in some trouble, so let's be more cautious with this decision. I think that's been super helpful.
So in my eyes, I look at it like, was the military the first taste you had of like, all right, you got to invest into getting better at something? Because like for us, like we grew up around tint, like it just was.
No,
it was our everyday thing. I don't think we realized it at the time that we were getting reps in, and we were just, you know, going along with the flow. But like, I mean,
consciously being aware of it, no, I think it was definitely more recently. Maybe towards the end of being in the Army, getting into ultras was, I think, the thing that like made me start thinking about it. But realistically, it was from birth. It was watching dad, mom, sports.
yeah, but we look back at that.
Yeah,
now.
but at the time, I wasn't thinking about it. But I look back at baseball now, and baseball's jujitsu in my mind. It's the same thing. Like,
It's a game of failure.
yeah, and testing and practicing and repetition, developing that muscle memory. And now when you go up to hit, you're not thinking about all the mechanics of a swing. You're just swinging.
Yeah.
Or throwing a ball. That's actually something that's been wild for me. I was always really inaccurate in throwing. It was my one like big struggle playing even up until high school. My senior year, I had to DH because I broke my thumb in the off season, and coming back into my senior season, I went from I had my end of my junior year going into that summer ball league. I was finally throwing like really accurately, and I felt really good at third base. Broke my thumb, come out of a cast, and definitely didn't put enough time into doing the rehab work that I should have been doing and getting ready for the season. And my arm was junk again. I couldn't throw across the diamond for the life of me. And then we happened to have a freshman that was a stud, Scott Lamborn.
Now we got
and he clearly was better than me there, so he got the spot. So I spent like almost my whole senior season as a DH and a little bit of right field. Which was actually really fun. It was probably one of the most fun seasons I ever had because just getting to hit was like the ideal for me. I was always stressed out about throwing, but why I bring that up is I've played softball since then. In the Army, I played a bunch, and then when I came back here, I played in a league, which you know all about because you then joined that team and smashed your face.
Yeah.
But playing catch with the girls. Over the years, I've noticed how much more accurate I've gotten, especially because when they were little, being really hyper-focused on, like, trying to get them a good throw. Now when I play catch with them, it's just, like, to the chest every time, like, every single throw. And it's just, like, that's a lifetime of practicing and playing catch, and I'm still getting better at being more accurate at that. And it's something I started when I was, like, 4.
Yeah.
So it's, like, I definitely consciously and talk about it more and think about it more of like, no, you can always improve. You can always be a little bit better. And you don't have to be mad that you're not great right now and like beat yourself up for it. Like just that's the process. Like it's going to be like that in everything. How we're doing with the business and the shop right now, everything's great. We're crazy busy. Consultations are at like an all-time high for what we're scheduling for the week. From everything we've been doing with marketing and adding on and doing more organic content and hiring a new ad agency that's then leveraging that content, using Pineda's team here to do this. I mean, these are all little pieces that we've slowly been adding that we're now starting to see pay off like crazy. And it seems very similar to that. Like you spend 3-4 years training jiu-jitsu before you go and feel comfortable like in a blue belt tournament, you know?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, was there a particular, I mean, I know probably I would assume it last like 4 years, at least maybe for me, I could say that like, I mean, I've always, I guess, technically trying to be conscious of where the business is growing, how we're growing. I mean, more likely, I guess I was kind of more centered around myself, looking at my performance and where I could get, you know, obviously I always want to make more money, and the only way to make more money is to show your performance. Was there a particular time when you got back where you were looking at or thinking about numbers, trajectory, or anything like that, where like, because like you said, everyone looks at kind of when we go to Tinter battles or anything like that, they see kind of where we're at now and see what, it's not a false facade that we're putting out, but it's what we have where we're at right now in our company. And they almost, I wouldn't say put us on a pedestal because that sounds horrible, but they put us there, and the fact that they're like, oh, you guys are the big guys, and it's like, for me, I still think we're the small fish in the ocean. Like there are plenty of companies that I have known and followed for the most part through like the Panorama meetings and stuff like that. I thankfully have been able to go to a lot of those, to where it's like, yeah, we're doing good, but by all measurements in my mind, we're still nowhere near where we could be, and what like technically, I guess, what big is. I guess my view on being a bigger shop or a bigger company is skewed because of the Panorama meetings.
Yeah.
Is because I look at those and I kind of know the wave tops of what numbers they're doing. Like I know what projects they're doing. And so I know, like, just by doing the math on the square footage of those projects and what you would be charging around about, I'm like, all right, so that's who I'm trying to chase. Is I want to chase them. And then
Yeah, see, this is where I kind of disagree. This kind of goes to the conversation that we had with Kate recently on like, even like, sometimes I think those numbers mess with us, whether it's views and engagement and like social media numbers, like 500 views. Some people think that that's like a waste of time and it's ridiculous. And if you're not going viral and getting millions of views, like it doesn't matter. But as we've learned, like, no, those matter. And especially if you compare it to like going and handing out cards and putting them on windows of doors at the mall like we used to do when we were younger.
We hated it.
Is like, how long would it take you to put out 500 cards? That's just a card that a high percentage of those people are just annoyed that you touched their car and throw it on the ground, to maybe get like a 1 or 2% return on.
Oh, it's probably higher than that.
Well, whatever,
I know
whatever
what
it is, like compared to like, okay, you spent 10, 20 minutes making a quick little video that, wasn't the best thing ever, but it provided some kind of value and somebody watched it. And it was hundreds of people or thousands of people, whatever. Like you're doing the work. That's like the part that matters. And if you keep doing it, maybe those numbers will go up, and maybe they don't a lot, but maybe the people that are watching are really engaged and they end up becoming a customer and then referring another customer that then maybe refers two more customers. And it's like that part you can't really measure directly in the moment. And I kind of feel that same way about comparing yourself to other shops. I don't think anybody out there should do it. Like I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is like the real measure to me now, instead of looking, I know what's possible, and I know that we definitely could scale up and grow to be bigger, but it's like, to what ends? Like, what are we really trying to achieve? Are we just trying to get bigger just to say we're bigger, or are we trying to be bigger to be more profitable? That's some of the stuff we've learned in the last really year that we've actually taken to heart and implemented, because we've paid for mentorships and we've gone to Alex Hermosi's workshop and looked at how he's looking at numbers to run businesses that are truly successful and are kicking off a profit, learning what your COGS should be on a project and where your pricing should be, and realize that, I feel like a lot of people in the industry are massively underpricing the value that they can provide because they're not looking at those numbers in the right way. And that's like a big piece of education I'd like to help get out there, is like just making that little shift in our business in the last year has made an insane difference on how profitable we're going to be this year. Because a lot of the time, especially when you're smaller, the owner is the installer.
Sales rep, installer.
Yeah, you're covering so many roles that you're just paying yourself for maybe one of those roles, and you're able to price wrong, in my mind, where you're not paying yourself as an employee and trying to run the business to be profitable. And you can get away doing that to a certain size because the margins are good if you don't have a bunch of people to pay, but you're not going to scale and grow at that point. And if you try to do it, you're going to be drowning and just breaking even constantly, because you're not considering your cost of material and your cost of labor, and then pricing that properly to make sure that you're covering that, and then all of the other expenses that are going to come out the other end. And the only way to truly grow is to be kicking off some profit. Maybe you don't realize it at the end of the year because you're trying to grow, so you reinvest it back into the business. So maybe come tax time, you don't really have a profit, but there was money generated there outside of what you paid yourself that you could then use to hire someone else to replace one of those jobs that you're holding. Those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about now, and looking at how big of an impact making little tweaks on stuff like that is how
They don't cost
how
you anything
impactful it can
either.
be. This is something Hermosi talks about, and it's wild because we've just realized it. We, for the longest time, had our pricing, I think, way too low for the quality of service we're providing and the quality of the material. And when you really go in and price it out based off of our true COGS, where our pricing should be, which we've made those adjustments, and then some a little bit to, because we're so busy that it's like, would you, if you could double your prices tomorrow and ensure that you're going to still have half the work, would you do that?
Heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, when you do the math on it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But then you also got to play the game of, you got to make sure that you can generate enough leads to not have half the work. You know, you still want to get more work in, but if you can, half the jobs you did last year, you're going to do this year, but you're going to do them at twice the price, but maybe you're going to do 25%, you're going to get 25% more leads and do another 25% more jobs. That's a totally different thing than I think what most people are doing. And I see other people's bids sometimes when I'm out there. Customers are pretty free and tell you how many different bids they got if they have gotten multiple bids.
Yeah.
And everybody seems to be in a zone that's like, when I do the math on how much I know the material and the labor should be, it's like you might break even selling it for that price. And I don't think you have to do that, especially now seeing that people are willing to pay for what we do, the price that's actually going to generate a profit at the end of the year. So that's been a huge part of growth for me on the business side, is like, is your deal structured right? That's a big lesson from Hermosi, and Pineda definitely hit it home for us doing the one-on-one with him, where it just is like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think everybody, especially when this is to me why I was always focused on, we need to grow the marketing pipelines, and we need to make sure that we're getting good leads coming in outside of referrals, through Google and through Meta, and get that dialed in, and through organic content, is because if you know that you've got so much work coming in that you're not afraid to not get every sale. Yeah. Like, there's going to be people that are price shopping and they just want the absolute best deal possible. They don't care about the quality of the service. Maybe they do a little bit, but at the end of the day, their main factor is price.
Yep.
They're always going to be there no matter what. And there's a percentage of people that are willing to pay for the time of not having the inconvenience of somebody that's possibly coming in that doesn't know what they're doing, applies the wrong film, breaks their windows, whatever it may be. Those people are there for sure. And I think we've realized that in the last year, by being able to bump our pricing up a little bit to match the fact that we have increased pay for our employees, we do have additional material costs. And it's something I was actually thinking about. So the general math that's kind of put out there is, you want to at least be charging 3 times your cost of goods sold. So your material, your labor. If the cost of material goes up 50 cents a square foot, that means we have to charge an extra $1.50 a square foot. You know, if you pay an extra 50 cents a square foot.
Oh yeah.
If you pay an extra 50 cents a square foot to your installers because their cost of living's going up and they need to be able to pay their mortgage and they need to be able to buy food and feed their family, you have to raise your prices another $1.50 a square foot. So it's like those little 50-cent increases in cost of material and labor costs, those really represent $1.50. So if you have an extra 50 cents of material cost from what you had 2 years ago, and an extra 50 cents,
this material's definitely gone up there.
Yeah, so now you're looking at $1 increase in your true cost, but really that means you got to raise prices $3 a square foot. And I think most people realize that now, that like everybody's talking about inflation. Everybody sees how much more groceries have gone up and stuff. And
unfortunately,
I get it that you want to keep your prices low and you want to like close every sales call you go on, but like it's probably better that you don't.
No, that's the biggest thing I would say is learning those lessons now, starting to understand and grasp those lessons. If you actually want to have the growth, reinvesting back into yourself makes all those costs too. You got to compile those costs into that cog eventually to invest into your labor and actually grow your labor.
Well, doing pricing that way allows you to kick a profit, which then, if you're still trying to grow and get bigger and get to the next size, in my mind, you're probably not going to realize that and take that home as an owner. If you're smart, you're going to reinvest it into, for sure, education. The mentorship and the money that we've spent in the last couple of years on those things, if you would have told me in 2014 when I first came back to the shop that we'd be spending that kind of money to go have someone coach us, I would have been like, we're never going to get to that point. And it's definitely, I feel like, been the best return on investment we've ever gotten, whether it's going to Jocko Muster, our deal with Pineda, going to Hermosi's workshop, all of those.
I mean, even look at the panorama meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Tin-offs,
yep.
tinner battles. Those are all, yes, you have the ability as an installer to win some money, but for the company, we are sending you there. Most of the time we're going to get sponsored by our manufacturers, which is great, that they invest into us. But I mean, they see the same thing. They invest into us because they want us to grow. If we grow, we buy more film.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as the company, we have to send off our installer for 4 or 5 days. Like, that's 4 to 5 days worth of labor that we could have scheduled jobs for. Yeah. And that does add up. Yes, you can schedule around that as much as possible, but that's still an investment.
Well, and that's where the long-term thinking goes. That's where I think where people get impatient and just want to make more faster right now.
Instant gratification.
Yeah.
That's I'd say
that's biggest. Where I'm totally okay with. I've always said this has actually been a debate between us. Like, I think we should figure out a way to take everybody from the shop to the tin-off and just close down for 3 or 4 days, which, like, short-term numbers of what that'll look like for the month, like, is scary, but I think the long-term value in doing something like that is huge. If we plan for it, and we've got a company event coming up here next weekend. We're doing a half a day, and then we're doing lunch, and we're doing an escape room, and we're taking everybody out to do something like that, which we've been trying to do like once a quarter.
Yeah.
I think if we presented it, especially to all the installers, I mean, probably everybody, that instead of doing those quarterly events, let's, like, next year, let's, like, not do the quarterly events. Let's take and compile that time and money that we make on those days and schedule to take as many people as humanly possible to an event like the Tin-Off and show up with the whole crew and let them all experience it.
I think we're definitely on the path of doing that. Yeah. Believe me, I'm not against it. It's just more likely one of those things, like, we're not there as a company to plan that out correctly.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying like next year. I think this year is still a good idea to have the in-house tinner battle, see who else gets to come with, bring as many people as we possibly can while not completely shutting down the shop. But those are the long-term investments that in the short term, I think a lot of people that, especially if you're not pricing properly and you're afraid to price what you're truly should be getting to make it to where your business is generating a profit that can either be reinvested to grow, or if you're happy where you're at. That's the other thing, is like, people's ambitions and goals are totally different. Yeah. Like what is it that we're trying to get to? You know, like, some people are, and I could see myself doing this in the future. I could totally be happy living in a small suburb of a town like Dallas, where I'm 45 minutes out of the Metroplex, living in a little country town with a website turned on, knowing that I can generate enough leads to tint 1 or 2 commercial or residential projects a week or a month, spend the rest of my time at home with my kids, helping train them for sports, having some chickens to get our own food. And, like, I've talked about this a bunch. Like, I totally see the appeal in doing that. And now what's cool is investing in the mentorships and ways to run a business profitably and understanding all that stuff better and understanding how to do the marketing better. Like I have those skills now where I know confidently that I can go to, especially after having already run a location in the Texas area. Like I'm just giving that as an example. I don't even think it'd have to be there. That's the cool thing about this industry. Once you get into it long enough and you've got the skill of tinting down, it's like, what is it you want to do? Like, you could be a subcontractor that goes out there and works 6 months out of the year going and traveling, depending on if you have kids and how old they are and all that. Like, there's a million different options. You can, I mean, the podcast is trending in South Africa in entrepreneur category. What's going on in South Africa? Like that's wild to me. That like when we got that number back, I was like, oh yeah, I guess people all around the world could see this. And that actually really kind of blew my mind on like, oh man, we might actually be reaching and helping people in a way that we can't even understand.
I see. Yeah,
in areas of the world that like the skill of learning how to tint could take you anywhere around the globe and probably make a really good chunk of change comparable to what's available where you're at right now.
Oh, absolutely.
That's kind of wild to me. I did not expect that to be like one of the first reports we got back from Apple on how the podcast is doing is like, oh yeah, you're in like the top 20 something in South Africa right now. Like that's kind of wild.
No, that was definitely wild. Well, that kind of pushes me towards, I got two questions. And I think those two questions will probably take up the majority of the rest of the time too. One, what's the greatest lesson you got from Dad? And I guess that could be a couple different part question because in my eyes, you can literally chop up our careers almost to like three different sections. Obviously, the beginning part, we were younger, 16, 17, 18 dumbasses. And then for you, after military, coming back in your late 20s?
Yeah.
Late 20s. And then to where you are now.
Actually, I'm about to be 40. So
it's older than that.
So I was like 30. Yeah.
All right, but
I turned 30 right after moving back out here.
Well, so that's the middle section.
Yeah.
So you got the 4 or 5 year section there,
which
we were experiencing tremendous growth at that time. We landed the Rebel account, which if we were to go back and look at the numbers and the cogs on that, that was purely an investment in ourselves to operate on a large scale project and just figure it out as we went along.
Well,
in which I price-wise, super underbid it. But we wanted to land the account, and it was 40-something buildings, and it was a revolving account. And what I did learn from working that account, because I was one of the leads working with a main person from Rebel, that like kind of what I got from her, like I said, it was an investing account to where like the conversations I had with her business-wise, like, and then like she didn't want to deal with Dad, but like just personalities didn't rub correctly to where I told him, let me take lead. And I took lead on that. And I learned a lot from her when it came down to it, just when it came to operations across. And when you're trying to run a business that spans, I think they had like 50 something stores at the time. Like I'd probably, if I could go back now to that account, I would even ask even more questions. Like I would be so much more at it with like how operations work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to where we're at now, I mean, from that growth, I mean, we've thankfully been able to experience kind of growth as we've gone along. But now we're at the point where, like, technically, I'd say the later part, Dad being ripped away from the company, then it's just kind of like we are kind of left to our vices of what we're going to do. Like, they are still part of the conversation because they still are the owners in the background, and we make decisions together as a group. But it's still more likely he puts, like he said on the podcast, like he doesn't worry about the company anymore, which that was a huge relief and a huge, weight off the shoulders of knowing, like, all right, like he finally has gotten to the point of, like, I know he still will look at what we're charging and stuff like that. I know he still peeks at the bank account. I still know he does all that, but I don't get the phone call every day now. I used to get that phone call every day of this is what we owe, this is what we're making, this is what we got to do. And it's like, I'm worried about that too. I don't need the reminder every day. Like it's, you're stressing me out by you stressing for, like, it's not no reason, but like it's there. It's in the forefront of my mind every single day. Like I get it. You've pushed into us and like made us so aware of the fact of like it's not just us we're worrying about, especially as we got bigger. When Dad first started, keep it small, keep it all, he was worrying about his family, and like yes, he brought people in. Now we're at a point where like the decisions we make have an impact across multiple families
Yeah.
and multiple, mouths to feed, to where it's like, I don't want to make the wrong mistake. If I make a mistake, it could cost, we could take a dive in the company. And now it's like, we have to make decisions of either who's being cut back on hours or anything like that. And it's like, well, I don't want to make that decision, because like, I know that it's not just I'm cutting back on that one person. I'm cutting back on a family someone's trying to provide food for their family.
Yeah, no, totally. That's always top. I think we're getting away. Your initial question was about dad.
What did you learn from dad from different
Yeah,
periods?
but I'll go back to that, because that's totally top of mind to me. Like right now, I know that both of us are putting in 70, 80-hour weeks left and right, because we're so overwhelmed with leads and business, and things are great right now, which is a great problem to have. So I'm not complaining about it. And I think it kind of ties back to what I learned from dad is exactly that. Like when it's time to work hard, work hard. Yeah. Like this idea that you can build a business up and just do a 40-hour week and not be bugged at night or on the weekends was something that I constantly complained about as a young person to dad, about how he was always turned on and dealing with business. But it's like, you kind of have to be at a certain point, and if you do it right, and I think that's where we're getting to now, you can get to a point where you do have 3 months of reserves sitting in the account. You're not in debt. You've relieved that burden from yourself by, when you do get things rolling in the right direction and you are seeing growth in revenue coming in and profit coming in, you kind of relieve that pressure, and now you have the ability to build up a team that makes it to where you can go take a vacation to New York or wherever it is and know that things are going to be handled, because we have a solid team and structure built now where you don't have to take it all on yourself. I wish dad would have learned that lesson sooner, for his health and for, where the business could be, but it is what it is. And like, I feel extremely fortunate and grateful to be in the position that we're in, to have been kind of handed over and trusted with trying to accomplish that. And I feel like we're going in a really good direction as far as that goes. But that tenacity and grit, and, he definitely now, I think both mom and dad, they've definitely become, I think, more successful than their wildest dreams, as far as how they're living, their house, the size of the business, what's going on with all of that. And I can see how now it's even scarier, like, because like you, especially coming from nothing, like the idea of losing it. I think it's good that we kind of took over when we did, because if you can't grow if all you're thinking about is just maintaining, because decisions need to be made that are risky.
Yep.
And it's balancing those risks with understanding that you're responsible for other people. But knowing that if you're not growing, especially in an economy like ours where there is inflation, it's like a hot topic right now that it's higher than it should be, but like, if you actually think and like look into economics and see what's going on, like they always want there to be some level of inflation. They want the cost of stuff to be going up in order for growth to be happening, to put pressure on the system, where if you're in business and you're not growing, you are kind of dying.
Yeah.
And I know there's a ton of window tint businesses out there throughout the industry that are similar to mom and dad's position, that it was someone who, maybe tried growing, didn't learn the right lessons at the right time, and really learned the lessons of not trusting people. And the only way you are going to grow to a point where you can be more hands off on the day-to-day installations and that part of the business, you have to find good people. Like, you have to be able to find good people and trust them, and sometimes you're going to get burnt. And it's just like everything else. You're gonna fail on that end of it too. But when you do find the good people, taking care of them, helping mentor them along, create opportunities for growth for them, that's when you can really see it. So it's like, well, I feel that, especially when we have our group outings, when it's like everybody's family even comes along and we go to the Knights games and stuff, that always, every time we've done it over the last couple of years, I feel like I always sit towards the back, and like I kind of spend a minute just staring around, looking at how many people the shop affects day to day, and it feels heavy, but also awesome at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and it makes me that much more motivated to be like, all right, I got to work 80 hours this week. Like, I'm gonna, as much as I don't want to work this Saturday, like I have to.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't get these sales in and get the next, 2 weeks solid booked out for my guys, their pay isn't going to be as good as they want it to be, and that's definitely a huge motivator. And I definitely learned that from mom and dad. Like that, just like you gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, it's like
you
said,
want it or you don't.
Like you said, it's I'd say the beginning part that answered that question actually perfectly was knowing that when it's here, it's time to grind.
Yeah,
Like
this is a seasonal business. Like, it's gonna get crazier in the summer than it is in the winter.
Yep.
I mean, our childhood was spent many winters where the shop was so slow that we just made it an annual habit to go to Bryan Head for like a week or two in December through New Year's. And it's like it's so slow that there's no reason to even be here.
You can leave the one or two.
And now we had a
behind.
nice big family vacation that's super memorable and like you're never gonna forget, and get back to the grind. And the summer is gonna be wild, and there's gonna even like Dad remodeling our houses and stuff back in the day. I remember doing that with him, where it's like he would spend a 12-hour day running the business and then come home and spend another 4, 5, 6 hours with us remodeling something in the house,
painting walls.
So that type of grit and knowing that like you can always do more was super beneficial. Now, I think it's awesome that we have that, and we're trying to add on to it with like, okay, now how can we do this smarter? How can we get more people on board to help? How do we actually scale this thing to be a profitable business where there's some enterprise value, where you're not like, there's people out there that didn't have kids that got into the business and wanted nothing to do with it. And right now they're sitting on a business that pays them a paycheck every year and doesn't kick any profit off at the end of the year. And they're getting older and might have some medical issues, or, have already had medical issues, or they might have them in the near future. And unfortunately, their business isn't sellable.
Yeah.
And so that's another like thing that I'd like to help educate people on, if possible, is like, you got to create enterprise value in your business if you do want to at one point be able to exit your business. Again, that might not be your goal. Some people know that they're just going to be saving and investing and be super frugal, and they're cool with just being their own boss and creating a paycheck for themselves for 30, 40 years. And hopefully if they've done that wisely and invested in real estate and stuff like that, then maybe they do have a great retirement in their future and their business isn't sellable. Or if they do sell it, they're not getting what they should get for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's wild that, I don't know, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So the more I learn, the more I realize, like, okay, it's really pompous of me to think I have it all figured out, because I definitely don't.
Yeah. No, agreed.
So yeah, I'm excited to see. We have to come back and do something like this again in like 5 years and see how these answers change. But yeah, the last 10 years since I've been back here have been filled with all kinds of personal and business growth. I mean, shoot, my daughter was 6 and now she's 16.
Yeah. Seriously.
That's my oldest one. I've got more kids than that, but she's driving now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like that's been a game changer. And I've got one that definitely my last one, because I fixed that, but now I've got 5 kids.
Yeah, have you verified that that's been fixed?
He's fully. Oh yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you've double verified?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I'm
Let
verified.
me say, last time you verified, it still wasn't fixed.
No. Yeah, it is. It's good.
Okay.
There's going to be no more kids coming from this guy.
Another nephew.
No, especially because William's potty trained now. So I'm like, finally, I'm out of diapers again, and I will never be
usually
back
when this
into
sneaks
diapers.
back up on you, all of a sudden, bow.
Yeah.
Restart.
No, Matthew was still in diapers when we had William. So, no more kids here. But they're going to keep me busy for a while. I'm actually really excited. Something that I thought about recently. I'm really excited the fact that I'm gonna be an adult with my children being adults with me longer than they're my like little children. Like the way we hang out with mom and dad now and can go have a party and drink. Like, that's even cooler to me. Like them being a child is like a season of time, and then we're gonna get to spend like I know for a fact I'm gonna get to run an ultra with Brooke at some point. You know?
I'm trying to convince you to let her come pace me again.
Well, when?
Oh, July 20th.
She can't, dude. That's the beginning of cross country season.
I've already replaced her with somebody, but if I couldn't find anyone, I was literally just gonna fly her out without you knowing.
Yeah, so when she was in Oklahoma last week, she did 2 5K, or she was there for 2 weeks. She did a 5K both weekends she was there because Grandpa signed her up. And she won both of them, first female in the race.
Of course she did.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
One of them, she fell at the start and totally scraped both of her knees up. And the picture at the end is there's blood just running down her legs as she comes across as the first girl to finish. I think she was like 6th overall. Yeah, so I'm super excited for this cross country season. So I'll definitely be spending a bunch of time on the trail with her for that.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna spend some time on that track too, doing some interval work. So that's always evolving. That's something I've definitely grown in a lot. Also, is my knowledge in running.
It all relates back to the same place though. When it comes down to it, it all helps with business. Business helps with that.
Yeah,
all about long-term investment. Slowly chipping away at stuff. Don't look for the instant gratification.
Yeah,
I mean, almost everyone's told that constantly. It's if you choose to actually really listen to it and pay attention.
Well,
and then you finally have your first push through in success with that, like it happening, and then all of a sudden you look back at like a year of like grinding at something. You're like, oh, so this is how all the top performers actually, like this is how they become stupidly successful. Is like if you look at them in their beginning of their careers to where they're at now, you see they do the same thing over and over again. It's just the consistency to keep grinding over and over. And then also when you are getting your ego out of the way and realizing that like you don't know everything, you're going to mess up. And if you're not messing up, you're doing something wrong. Yeah. You're not learning when it comes down to it.
What's crazy is I can totally relate it to running, especially seeing Brooke's success. She's like a perfect model of consistency and not having a big ego. Like when we're talking about how our training run should go and understanding that having a lower heart rate on the easy run days and not racing it out with the other kids or trying to just be faster than everybody else. It's like that's discipline equals freedom thing, right? Like if you're disciplined to take the easy days easy and not go hard because you feel good, and then you're disciplined enough to be consistent at that, and then you're disciplined enough to get your nutrition right, and you're disciplined enough to sleep, and like all of those little things don't seem like a big deal until 2 years later when you see the result of it. And that's in everything. Yeah. And I mean, food. If you're disciplined enough to eat properly and exercise, when you go to a birthday party, go ahead, have you a slice of cake and don't feel bad about it because you're 30 pounds overweight and insecure about like where you're at right now. Like do something about it, and it's going to take some time. And if you stay consistent with it, whether it's business or anything, you're going to see the result. But you have to be, that's my big takeaway from Dad, is just be resilient and just do not stop no matter what. I'm going to figure it out, you know, no matter how bad the financial situation gets because of the economy or whatever, losing an installer, whatever it might be. All right, we're going to get it done no matter what. Like we just lost an installer, but this job has to be done today no matter what. I guess I'm going to be on this house until 9 o'clock tonight finishing it, and there's no other option. You have to do it.
I agree. No, I think that's actually probably a perfect spot to kind of almost wrap this up too. So, but no, I appreciate you letting me poke and prod.
Well, it's all right because now I get to poke and prod next. So tune into the next episode.
The next one. Everyone, you know how this works. We appreciate you guys following on our journey of us trying to just kind of figure all this stuff out and just trying to grow little by little every day. Share, subscribe, leave comments if you have questions, if there's topics you want us to hit on. Just let us know.
Yeah. Thank you. If you're interested in being on the podcast, DM us or comment below, and we'll reach out. Anybody out there in the industry, local Vegas entrepreneurs, business people, maybe you're involved in local sports, nonprofits, anything like that you got a story you want to come on and tell. We're super interested to learn from you and have that conversation. Contact us and make sure you subscribe.
Have a good one.